Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Priya, and welcome to another amazing webinar here at Abhyas. So I work as an executive business developer and wellness specialist, and I will be your host today on this platform. Today's topic is a very exciting one. It is called Educator Burnout. Who cares for the caregivers? So this webinar will be exploring the key drivers of teacher burnout, the role of mental health stigma, and the deeper signals beneath the surface. Together, we will be discussing ways to support those who dedicate themselves to caring for others. So we're going to start with a participant engagement question, which is very much about, in the context of burnout, what is it that participants feel burnout looks like to them? So I'll ask it again. In your experience, what practices or methods help you stay resilient and sustain your well-being, even when faced with daily pressures? So I'd like to give our participants a bit of time, maybe a couple of moments, just to share a couple of your insights. And of course, during the webinar, you're welcome to share your insights there as well. I will be moderating the chat. And so the best way to engage today on our platform is to post your questions in there. There will also be an opportunity towards the end of our webinar where participants will have an opportunity to engage with the panel members by asking them questions as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and begin with our panel discussions. So we're going to start with introducing our panel members today. So I'm just taking a moment just to see if we have Dr. Augustine who has joined our platform. So he has not joined us yet, but I will move on to our next panel member and come back and introduce Dr. Augustine later. So our next panel member is Yavroni Wilkin. Yavroni is a global resilience and self-mastery coach. Yavroni is a transformational coach with a background in education and Montessori training. After several years in the classroom, she expanded her work as a job coach for intellectually disabled youth, integrating emotional intelligence, neuroscience, and spiritual wisdom. Yavroni developed a holistic methodology that honors the mind, body, spirit, energy connection. Her practice is grounded in lived experience, intuitive insight, and inclusive approaches that support well-being, personal mastery, and conscious human development. Welcome, Yavroni. It's always a pleasure having you on our platforms. I learn a lot from you. Thanks for being here. Our next speaker to introduce today is Dr. Avinash D'Souza. Dr. Avinash D'Souza is a consultant psychiatrist and psychotherapist with a private practice in Mumbai, India. He serves as a research associate at Lokmanya Tilak Municipal Medical College and is the founder trustee of the D'Souza Foundation, which promotes mental health awareness across sectors. With over 900 publications, he is also the editor of the Indian Journal of Mental Health. Alongside multiple advanced degrees, he balances his role as a father, husband, teacher, and mental health advocate. Welcome, Dr. Avinash. It's an absolute pleasure having you here today on our platform. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And our third speaker is Dr. Augustine Nuwana. Dr. Nuwana is a Global University Systems Fellow and Program Team Leader at the School of Business Management and Creativity at Arden University in the UK. He has worked internationally in education for over 30 years. Apart from his mainstream academic work, research, and teaching in universities, His consultancy work has included executive coaching, business development, and academic mentoring. He has also served as consultant for the V-Dem Institute, which is an independent political science research institute based at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, as well as Chevening reading committees. Welcome, Dr. Nawana. It's really good to have you on our platform here today. Thanks for being here. All right, so here is our lovely introduction of our panel members. We are now going to move ahead into our panel discussion. And so as we dive into these very interesting questions and an opportunity to listen and learn and absorb all of these amazing insights we will be able to gain from our experienced speakers. Audience, please don't hesitate to share your questions, share your comments in the chat below. And with that, we will continue on. So our first question is, burnout among teachers is increasingly common. From your unique perspectives, what do you see as the key drivers? And how does stigma around mental health contribute to burnout being overlooked or left unspoken? So it would be great to hear from Dr. Nuwana first, please, on this topic. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know what okay, have I unmuted?
You are audible. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me pride of place. And it's such a delight to be on this panel with very, very experienced colleagues and fellows around the world. I also want to thank Abhyas for this opportunity. And the question of burnout, in fact, prior to joining higher education, I had worked in primary and secondary education. It's just such a very, very big problem. And the general thing from the UK perspective, and even internationally, as I know, is that teachers and educational practitioners in even non-teaching roles tend to have a higher level of burnout than the average society in professional classes. And one of the key drivers from the surveys that were done by trade unions in the UK, the evidence is that there are quite a number of factors. The top driving factor, workload. We're probably going to get into really, really fine details of this at some point, but it's a critical thing. I don't know about other education systems, but the UK and the three education systems that I've worked in, burnout is a very, very big thing. We are in a way not recognizing the impact just yet. But if we know how impactful this is, resources are going to be directed in addressing burnout or stress, because there are so many ways in which burnout manifests themselves, which we'll come to it later on. So thank you. It's a very, very big thing. I've named just the number one driver, which is workload. We'll get into the details later on. Let the other colleagues pick it from there. Let's see.
Thank you, Dr. Nawana. I'm also interested in knowing, I understand you mentioned about workload. So how do you feel the stigma around mental health contributes to this burnout, even if it is due to workload? Or why do you feel that this stigma is being overlooked or if it's being left unspoken?
Wonderful question. Thank you so much. That begins to open the window into other directions of the conversation. Now, you experience a massive amount of workload. You come back home, you are totally drained. You can't complain too much because of the stigma, which is just about the fact that you chose to be a teacher. Why is it that you are collapsing, you are melting down when it seems as if the first sign of distress. So the idea of thinking that you'll be looked upon as weak, incapable, incompetent, when you complain about how you're feeling, there are all other primary causes of increase in workload, for instance, too much administration and monitoring things and children's behavior and so on, which increases workload in a sense or stress. But then our resilience, level of resilience to be able to cope with it reduces significantly as a function of a culture of thinking that you'll be seen as weak. So that is where the whole idea of what is the culture doing to me not to be able to cope with this particular situation. It impacts on our resilience. Culture impacts on the level of resilience, and the resilience is not authentic. You are simply bottling it in rather than deploying a methodical resilience system to cope with that. You're just bottling it in. And that is where this notion of what the culture is doing to the teachers come in.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nawana, for sharing those points. It would be really interesting to hear Yoroni's view as well on this question.
Bernard Monti. Okay. Yeah, in terms of my personal honest view, yes, I have actually been on a direct firing line, being primary, secondary, and then moving into higher education. The problems tend not to change too much. The view is that it is not significantly recognized by education systems, and also those who are deploying resources into education. That's my view.
Thank you, Dr. Nawana. Yes, thank you. It would be really great to hear Yoroni's view as well on this question. Thanks,
Thank you.
Yoroni.
Thank you, Priya. Oh, yes. I'm going to speak from the perspective of personal development and self-mastery because that is certainly my passion. Having been in the education system as well for a while, I was fortunate that I was not in the traditional system, yet locumed a lot in that environment as well. So definitely an overload of admin plays a big role. However, for me, burnout is the symptom that shows up because one's physical body and nervous system is overloaded. And that stems often from the individual being disconnected from the self. And by that, I mean purpose, their passion, their ability to stay present and creative with the profession that they've actually chosen. And it may be for a multitude of reasons that imbalance is taking place. You have the educators that are passionate and it is their true calling. And often, yes, the traditional schooling system doesn't quite cater for that. And that can also lead to frustration and overload of the system, mostly because we're confined to a system. There's very little creativity or ability to teach in a non-traditional way because you have to stick to a curriculum. Then you have the teachers that chose education, I'm going to say as a job, a way to earn an income. So that natural passion is not there. So it's a lot easier for them to get overwhelmed. And unfortunately, these days, we have a lot more teachers that are in education as a job and not because of passion. That's certainly my personal experience of it. And what happens is there's that mismatch between passion and purpose that creates that core driving of misalignment. Educators carry a huge responsibility on their shoulders. They are responsible for the nurturing of the young developing mind that sets up that child for life. They are mentors, they are guardians, they are everything in between. And it's a lot. It is a lot to ask of anyone. And the sooner the systems, the educational systems include EQ, emotional intelligence practices for the children that can help children to self-regulate. They deal with a lot at home as a child. Their diets may not support them concentrating. If a child is sugar loaded, he's going to be bouncing off the wall. You then have 20, 30, 40 children in a class and you're expecting one educator to cope with all of this. There's a lot more neurodivergence taking place in classrooms because there's been a shift in education. Years ago, when the education system was created, it was really lined up for the industrial era. And these days, education is being, or the individual is asking for creative ways of learning. They don't want to sit still in a chair. So how do you balance that? And how do you as an educator bridge that gap? And that's where the system will greatly make a big difference. The burnout as a core of depletion of the inner energy that we hold is, again, coming back to the disconnection. If it's not your passion, if it's not your purpose, you are going to struggle to find ways to work with a system. You're going to see the system as an obstacle. You're not going to get creative. You're not going to buddy up with other teachers necessarily and share the lesson planning or the marking or whatever the case may be. You're going to feel very alone in the system, and that's a lot. Having been there myself, it's a lot to deal with. So creating platforms where there's a healthy, wholesome mentoring system within schools, where teachers can get mentoring, or, you know, the stigma of the mental capacity, where you can just say, I need guidance. I'm not sure how to cope with this specific child, or I'm not sure how to deal with this subject right now. I'm not seeming to make a difference. How else could I be doing it? So it's mentoring one another also through the process. You may be good at languages, but you may not be great at maths, and yet you're being forced to teach maths as well. How do we cater for that? How do we lean into that with one another and say, support me, help me also grow, and how can I help you? That to me is a fundamental, important step within education, where it's not seen as a weakness. We're buddying up, if you want to call it that. Both the job seeking and the passionate teacher will benefit hugely, and the students, from self-mastery tools. It's important that we learn to self-regulate, that we teach our young individuals how to take responsibility from a very young age, how to remain centered. There's been huge results in schools where they brought in practices like meditation, for instance. I also, when I was in the education system with both the intellectually disabled youngsters and in the Montessori system, we did meditations. We taught EQ principles because we had the freedom to do so. There was journaling, there was creative drawing for the children to express themselves. There were emotional check-ins that took place, and we saw a big change happening in the children's ability to perform and show up and help each other on the playground, all of a sudden resolve a dispute, where all of that falls on the educator. And then you have, unfortunately, parents that also come and shout at the teacher that it's their responsibility to ensure that their child performs. It's important that the parents is also part of the process. It's like a community raising the child. instead of battling a system, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yoroni. Absolutely. Very, very well. Very, very powerful points mentioned there and very valid as well. I can see that there's a comment that's also come through in the chat by Kailash, who's saying that even the most advanced vehicle occasionally needs maintenance. Teachers, being human, have their limits too. Burnout isn't a weakness. It's a signal that even the strongest need care and rest. Thank you for sharing that with us, Kailash, as well. So it would be really amazing to hear from Dr. Avinash now, please. So Dr. Avinash, please to share with us your views on this question. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am the psychiatrist here, and I work in a number of schools where I visit as a school psychiatrist to handle children and adolescent issues. And it's only when I started working in schools that I immediately realized that student mental health is definitely linked to teacher mental health, and there is no doubt on that. And it's only when I saw a few students and they showed improvement that a few teachers said, could we see you and consult you, because we feel we're undergoing certain issues. And that's when I did a small session for teachers on how to manage children with behavioral problems in a classroom, that their own issues related to burnout and etc. came up. And see, the teacher has two or three environments to deal with. One is the school, the classroom environment. That is one. The second is the workplace environment in the school, which is the second environment. And the third environment is his or her own family or personal environment. Now, there could be problems at all these three levels. Sometimes you have a difficult class combined with a hostile workplace environment where you have groupism and some teachers are one against the other, and there's a new teacher who's being sort of harassed or bullied at the workplace. You could have senior teachers versus junior teachers. I mean, all these kind of problems that happen. And there could be personal family problems. She's having problems with her spouse, she's having problems with her family, she's having problems with um managing her own children, and there are a lot of personal problems. The husband is alcohol dependent. There are multiple issues that she's facing at a personal level. So, and all these three systems are intersected. So, what happens is that if the family is troubled, the teacher is troubled, and that anguish, that anger, that uh, feeling of upset comes to the workplace. Now, if that comes to the workplace gets hassled. If that gets hassled, the classroom gets hassled, and vice versa. So sometimes it can happen that a student who may be mischievous but has not done so much mischief to deserve a very bad punishment is sometimes given a bad punishment, and the teacher is pulled up, and then she says, oh, I'm very sorry, I just had a bad day, and my anger, which was against my husband, came out on the child in school. That happens. Now, invariably, the key factor here is that or if she's had a bad day in school, she may go home and shout at her family members. It could go the reverse way also. So the thing is that, and most teachers are parents themselves. Most teachers are wives or husbands themselves. Most teachers are brothers and sisters themselves. And their families always feel that, you're always working and preparing for your class tomorrow and not giving us time at home when you come back in the evening. So that's another thing that happens. Apart from that, in today's era, I think in the last 5 to 10 years, and I think one thing we have to agree that COVID-19 took a big toll on teachers because it changed the way they were teaching. That is the first thing. So they had to adapt to an entirely different mode of communication, teaching. So it took a huge pressure on them. A lot of them who were younger could adapt. we had some who were in the middle age and senior age who took a long time to adapt to the online mode. Some are still not comfortable very much with the online mode because they've been spending 20, 30 years offline, and now suddenly you ask them to go online. So it's, very difficult. And just when that stress has got over now, post COVID, we have a large number of children with behavioral issues in schools, which takes a toll on teachers themselves. And teachers don't get rest. They're busy on Saturday, they're busy on Sunday, they're working 365 days a year. They get just 1 month of leave probably from school, which also sometimes they have to prepare report cards and exam papers have to be checked and multiple. So teachers work around the clock and no one does anything for teacher mental health. So we see burnout very, very rampant today. And also not all teachers are paid very well. So I think that's a very big issue because I think the finances are a very big factor. I mean, if I'm paid a very nice salary, I mean, it definitely reduces my chances of burnout because I get more enthusiastic to work. I get more. And most teachers, if you ask them why are they burning out, they feel underappreciated. That is what they say, that we're doing so much, but we feel underappreciated. We feel no one appreciates us. We feel no one uh, respects us, no one likes us. And we have, as Yeruni said, students are upset with them, parents are upset with them. And so they feel whatever we do, we are not appreciated. And I think that is one of the reasons why burnout happens. So, yeah, this would be my few points to start with.
Thank you, Dr. Avinash. And given that we know that the world we live in now, particularly post-COVID, there has been a real increase in mental health conditions as well. And I think it's also brought to the surface a lot of the stigma associated with mental health. In your view, how do you think stigma around mental health is contributing to burnout being overlooked or left
Yes.
unspoken?
So, burnout is not a psychiatric disorder. That's the first thing. It's not a diagnosis, it's a phenomenon that happens. So, it can happen to anyone. Now, I think all over the world, whether you look at Europe, UK, India, Asia, Africa, Latin America, anywhere, there is a huge stigma about even seeking a psychiatric consultation. Because the thought is that, or seeking a psychologist consultation, not even psychiatrist, even going to a counselor has stigma. Because the thought is, am I ill? It's not about am I ill, am I mentally ill? And the word mental is what adds to the entire stigma. So we use the word psychologically disturbed now to try and reduce the stigma. But the fact that you're going to a counselor, people assume, oh, she or he must be having a problem. That's why they're going to a counselor. So and there's a common misconception that only when you're ill, you go to a counselor. But even normal people with life problems, day-to-day problems, could go to a counselor to get a perspective. But that's a thought that not many think of. So they think, oh, they're seeking help because they're ill. So otherwise, why would they need to go to a counselor? Or they are so weak that they cannot manage their problems on their own. So that is where the stigma comes in first. And if anyone seeks leave for a week to sort of recover, and let's say in that 1 week they have consulted a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist, the school demands that can you get a certificate from the doctor or from the therapist? And the moment a certificate from someone dealing with mental health is produced, the teacher is looked at in a negative way. That is there, a problem here. And see why? Because we have two stakeholders here, three stakeholders: parents, teachers, and school authorities, meaning principal, office staff, I mean the school management. So the principal, the teachers are concerned with teaching and finishing their syllabus. The parents are concerned with exams and marks and academics. The principal and the school authorities are concerned that the school shouldn't get a bad name. So each one has their own priorities in managing the whole situation. So they don't look at any other priority. Their first priority is what they do. So I think this is where the stigma comes from.
Thank you, Dr. Avinash. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next question. So the next question is, what are the signals of burnout, and how do these impact our functioning in a learning and teaching environment? It'd be really good to hear from Dr. Nawana first, please. Thank you. I think Dr. Nawana, yeah, there you go. You're audible now.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm audible now. Thank you very much, Priya. Yeah, the symptoms. Sometimes we might want to claim that we know all the symptoms at this stage, but some of them we're still to discover because it is a very fluid area of educational psychology. But most explicitly, the evidence from what we have been able to glean from the system is things like low energy. Sometimes teachers don't even realize that, the fact that I'm having this tiredness. They just take the tiredness to be normal. And it's not tiredness from a physical job. You just feel drained at the end of the day. As you reach home, you throw your back down, you just fall, and that's it. And things like loss of sleep. We're saying this because it has, well, just by way of clarification and putting things into perspective, some of these things are observed from the point of view of an educational administrator, because sometimes these complaints come in, people ringing in and saying that I just can't get out of bed today. I did not sleep all night and I don't feel like I can come in today. Sometimes we put an amber note on the teacher's attendance, being punitive rather than reflective about what is happening. And that those are some of the symptoms that I observed as an administrator. That loss of energy. Even during meetings, sometimes you need to observe colleagues. Some interventions come with a lot of anxiety. You see people communicating with a lot of anxiety. Sometimes the question, this is somebody who is supposed to be very confident, highly educated, they are articulate in what they are saying, but I can see anxiety hanging on there. And one thing we did not really state very clearly is that burnout is, it doesn't only end. I'm talking in terms of what the trade unions in the UK in particular have done in their surveys. The teachers, the percentage of burnout amongst administrators who have previously been teachers tend to be higher than teachers. You won't believe. Managers of education tend to have a higher level of burnout and stress than teachers. So you see, it's a kind of layering effect. So things like anxiety during meetings, and you hear stories about colleagues sometimes, you think that, that's probably because of her personality or his personality, break up in relationships. I can't do it where we are at the moment. I can't be dealing with you. I can't be dealing with work. I can't be dealing with this. But meanwhile, it's actually just work. It's not about the you who is either your wife, your husband, or maybe children. I can't deal with you anymore. It's work that has caused it. And sometimes we hear the story of so and so person is divorced, but we think that it's their social problem, not knowing that it's actually coming from work. It's coming from a burnout in school. This is a very, very big social travesty from my perspective. And sometimes some of the things are so personal. that colleagues will never disclose to you: reliance on prescriptive drugs. Why I'm saying this, I have picked this up. If I remained and I never got into administration and being a manager of people, I manage in a very personable way. I like to carry out what we call stress risk analysis on my colleagues. And when you do that regularly, you occasionally pick up these things, which otherwise will be seen as that is their business. But it's a big mistake. Now, I am really thinking that any listener who is in that same position as I used to be, and I'm still in, should really think very reflectively about these things. And make sure next time you hear that a colleague has just suddenly divorced, or a colleague has just suddenly become reliant on prescriptive drugs, don't just say that it's their business, but you don't need to get in great details into it, but at least you will look at, because burnout is not only a personal thing. Some of the drivers are institutional. You might want to look at the institutional elements of the addressing the whole matter. So that's my perspective for now, at least, in terms of the symptoms as they show.
Thank you, Dr. Nawana. Thank you very much for your insights there. It'd be really good to hear from Yoroni next, please. What are your thoughts, Yoroni, on this question? Thanks.
Thank you so much. Both of the speakers that are here with me today share valuable points, and we can go down many avenues on this topic, because it's a solution that requires many parties to come together. So for me, the big signs of burnout that often shows up long before we even become aware of it, maybe ourselves, starts in the classroom already. It's that disconnection from the students, the work, the colleagues, the reduced ability to remain patient, emotional reactivity, and the passion starts fading. That is, if it was there in the first place, right? And the innovation or the ability to get creative just dries up. And there's a lot more people today that struggle with burnout than what we realize. Why? Because our nervous systems are overloaded for various reasons. And the human body is designed that way, that it will communicate with you and it will give you signals when you are out of alignment. And medically, or as far as companies are concerned, they might give you a month off for burnout. However, there's many health theories that show it takes the body about 3 years to recover after burnout. And that is with you also actively working with your nervous system to reboot it, to become aware and centered and balanced. Yes, there's external factors, yet we are in control of our own lives. If you are not passionate about teaching and it is creating burnout in your life, then maybe it's time to look for a career change. If you are a passionate teacher and you want to make this work for you, then how can you best support yourself? Even as a coach, I have coaches and mentors I work with. We are not meant to do this on our own. It is using every resource you can to support yourself in the result that you want to create. That is really it. What is the intention and how can you create that result? Maybe one school doesn't offer you the support, but another will. We have options. And I feel that is also a key factor, is to know that we're always at choice. It is, what are we going to do with that choice? And yes, if the teacher is not passionate, the children will pick it up. They will know. They're very in tune. So it's the irritability, the emotional numbness that can sometimes show up, because We're not wanting to take the time to understand because we just empty ourselves and we can't actually cope with what's happening. The loss of motivation or creativity because we're just on this hamster wheel and we're just producing. The increased absenteeism. Some people also, I must be honest, use it as an excuse. Oh, my colleagues are taking time off, so I'm going to take time off. Why must I do all the work, right? It is that personal responsibility that also comes in. And then there is definitely the health challenges that are starting to show up seriously that cause absenteeism because the person's system is just completely overloaded. And how do we support that in a wholesome way? What do we create to help that? You know, our education system does not teach emotional intelligence. So how can we actually expect our teachers to know that unless they go and find their own resources and they find ways to bring it into the classroom themselves because they care or because they're passionate? So the sooner we make it part of the curriculum, that we make it quite normal, that we actually all need to self-regulate and take personal responsibility and center and balance out, the sooner I feel a lot of these challenges will go away. The chronic fatigue, yes, headaches, insomnia, body signaling is showing you something is out of alignment, and I'm asking you to please hear me. How do we restore balance that is more wholesome for your life and for the lives you touch? You know, like I said, teachers have a responsibility. You could be mentoring or teaching the next president. And how does that make those teachers feel? Do they see that as a burden? Do they see that as this is too much for me? Or does that excite them because they're nurturing this inquiring mind that could change the world perhaps, or that could have a massive impact in designing the next technology era or element? There's a lot here, and it is just about how can we support ourselves, because it's actually the only thing we ever have control over.
Thank you, Yoroni. Absolutely, very well said. It'd be really good to hear Dr. Avinash's view as well. And just before I go there, I can see that there's been another message come through in the chat that a footballer worn by a physical strain retires around 40, but a teacher, they carry both the invisible and the mental exhaustion and physical fatigue year after year, with no early retirement, no cheering fans, and no applause. Just silent battles fought late into the night alone. Thank you, Kailash, for sharing that. So as our speakers have mentioned already today, which is it's all about our internal signals, listening to our internal signals and self-regulating. So it would be really good to hear Dr. D'Souza's views on this point as well. Thank you, Doctor.
Well, I think the signs of burnout in teachers include a lot of fatigue and a lack of sleep. That's the first thing. They also feel very numb and detached from their students. They feel very numb and detached from the work that their students do. The amount of praise and emotion they would show when talking to students reduces. There's a loss of passion and motivation. There's a decline in enthusiasm when they teach. We see a lot of that happen. They also become very cynical and negative on students, on the school system, on the government, suddenly they were not like that before. There's, of course, a lot of anxiety and depression that comes in. There are appetite changes, there are physical aches and pains. Their job performance reduces. There's workplace absenteeism that happens. They start taking leave. They also show a lot of social withdrawal from colleagues. And overall, their job satisfaction is sort of less. And it's very important that when these signs are seen, they immediately sort of seek help, because the main thing is that even if something happens in the school, I remember a principal telling me that this teacher would always be in the forefront to come and help and do things. And now there is a sort of apathy that the teachers developed that, I really don't care. And she said a student fell down and hurt himself, and he would have been the first teacher to pick up the student and apply a bandage or whatever. And she just stood there as though nothing had happened. And that's when we noticed that there is a change in her behavior. And uh, then, of course, on assessing, we found there were stressors and there were other problems and there were multiple factors. So that could be the first sign of burnout. In fact, students also tell you that, that the teacher would earlier make us laugh and crack a lot of jokes. And now she doesn't make us laugh and she's very serious, she's very strict. The moment a class or a group of students tell me that a particular teacher has become stricter and less emotional, that's my wake up call. I immediately would like to talk to the teacher and find out what has happened. Or they'll say, she teaches half the topic and then she'll say, read the other half on your own. Otherwise, earlier, she would have taught the entire topic. Or midway through the class, she'll give us some work to do and just sit down and not teach. So invariably, those are all things that point in the, and if you go in the school break and tell her that, Madam, the student goes and says that, teacher, I would like to talk to you. No, I'm very busy now. Don't worry me. Earlier, she was very approachable. So students come and tell you these points. So this gives you an idea that burnout has set in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Avinash. Yes, I think that it's really good that we have this platform where we can talk about this very, very, I guess, well-known, well-prevalent condition that human beings, no matter what profession we're in, we're all facing. And so it's really interesting. We're now going to move on to the next question, which is all about focusing on how we can create change. So it's all about what kinds of practical approaches can help us and can help our educators. So the question is essentially, what practical approaches can help us create a culture of mental well-being in education that truly supports and empowers our teachers? I am mindful of the time, but I just feel this question is so important, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of our speakers on this question as well. Over to you, Dr. Nawana, first, please. Thank you.
Okay, I was very conscious of it because this is a large field of debate here. But generally, to frame it, I know that ways of addressing it, as I indicated earlier, are supposed to be both institutional from the institutional point of view and then leadership, and personal, which is about you surviving in a messy global workplace. So let me start from the personal perspective because you are a teacher, first of all, which you owe your career to impacting knowledge on the next generation of people, irrespective of the institution where you're working. That is to buttress the point which our colleague Yaroni said. You might want to shift to another institution that might not support you quite as much. But within you, in terms of your own professional decision-making perspective, you have to try and adopt certain internal aspects or personal aspects of dealing with this. So to be proactive sometimes, that is dealing with it before it gets worse. It's always very important to be reflective. First, since we mentioned workload as the very first thing, you have to sometimes try and draw boundaries. I know that being an administrator and leader in education, sometimes when people are too conscious of boundaries, I feel a bit touchy. I'd say, come on, your boundaries are too narrow. Open it up a little bit. But to be fair to people, those boundaries work as a function of how much pressure you are going to allow to bear on you. Sometimes boldness to step out there and call out bad practice in the school. I know. We will look at people who do that very frequently as being radical, use terms like intransigent and so on. But some colleagues do that to protect both their own mental health and that of other colleagues. For example, very recently, we had to take a decision to say that this is the assessment window. We will expand this window for assessment. For instance, you are dealing with a class of 75 students or a module of 75 students, and you have to mark written scripts of up to 6,000 words over a period of 5 days. You will mark all the scripts. That puts a lot of pressure on colleagues to work more than 8 hours a day, sometimes 12 hours and that kind of thing, in order to meet up that. We knew that that is what it takes. But someone has got to come out and say that, look, listen, this your 5-day window is killing us. You have to rethink it. So, as much as we didn't like that, maybe the tone of saying it, it is the reality. So setting of lines, drawing the boundaries, and trying to cultivate an attitude where you self-protect your own mental well-being is very, very important. I would like to touch a little bit on institutional interventions before I just close and leave some of the points for the colleagues to address. Let me start from a very petty point at the institutional level. One of the things that really upset colleagues, you may be surprised to hear this, is meetings. Because we do a whole lot of meetings. Someone has got to organize these meetings. Someone has got to put on record that this was a decision that was made in this and that committee. And these committees sometimes is such a source of stress for a lot of colleagues. Oh God, I have markings that on there and I must attend this meeting. Why can't they just get on with it? But no, we can't. Those of us administrators, we have to organize these meetings. It's on the calendar, it must hold, and so on. But what do we do in order to make sure that we reduce the amount of stress that these meetings bring? One thing which is very, very simple, and a lot of us, we don't know how to do it very well, to streamline meetings. Streamline meetings. I am essentially an introvert. I don't talk much. You'll be surprised to hear this. That means if in a meeting, I want to have my point of input into the debate, suggest a solution, and let's move on. But it's not everybody who is able to do that. But if you coordinate the meetings very well, streamline them very well, let there be a reasonable amount of debate, not getting into rabbit holes. Reasonable amount of debate, decisions made, action points taken. I do sometimes literally micromanage my secretary, but once I do it once in a new school, I don't do it again. I said, you want to split your minutes into 3. It must be in these 3 columns, I say. And once it is in those 3 columns, these are critical points of debate. These are decisions reached. these are the actions to be taken. And the meetings are just get managed in that way. That's one institutional intervention from a very simple thing like meetings that can actually reduce stress. Let me just pause here and get the colleagues, the other colleagues, to really bring in their intervention. There are lots of things between those two categories, personal and institutional. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nawada. Yoroni, it would be great to hear from you too. And again, I just want to say heartfelt apologies. I know we are running a little bit over time, but these discussions are so enriching. I'd just really love to give all our speakers an opportunity. Thanks, Yoroni.
I'll be as quick as I can on this. For me, I do feel that if we can embrace an updated educational system that meets the new generation, that would be fantastic. Our children, our teachers are creative, emotional, intelligent beings, and we're creating a diverse era of all possibilities. And it would be awesome to see our system that actually supports a purpose-based engagement rather than a performance-based teaching, because in many instances it fails the system in any way. Big thing is to teach empowered inner alignment through mindfulness, emotional regulation, journaling, breath work, and just how to be the wholeness of your self, and to be independent. We're in the era of independence and not workforce, so to speak. The administrative overload can easily be solved with a lot of the technology that is available, and it doesn't take much to embrace all of that. Workshops can be held, and schools and systems can easily convert to be a little bit more supportive. I also feel that having in-classroom support, even if it's every now and again, to especially help neurodiverse learning facilities, makes a huge difference in a classroom. Creating emotional checkpoints for where it's a safe space. Like Dr. Avinash also mentioned, it's awesome that there's some institutions that have somebody keeping an eye. What is shifting? What is changing? What is the feedback I'm getting? And how can we support and intervene before the wheels really start falling off, both for students and teachers? It would be awesome to see more schools and institutions embracing that. And then, yes, for me, having the family support, getting the family involved in the school communities, committees, sports field, because that is where a lot of conversations take place, and there's camaraderie being shown, and support can spread into classrooms. When our children were at school, we had classroom moms, we had communities that were helping with school activities, we had parents on the sports fields, we had parents part of the governing body, because then you can see the struggles taking place, and the parents are more likely to say, how can we help, how can we support this environment, instead of judging the lack of something taking place. So it is a combined approach required. There is not one solution that is going to solve education on its own and burnout for teachers.
Thank you so much, Yoroni. A beautiful and strong note to end on. And I'd like to hear from Dr. Avinash next, please, on this question.
I will go directly to the point. Now, I think a lot of time is spent by teachers in travel, travel from home to school and back to school, and so one is, I tell teachers, eat well, sleep well, some kind of physical exercise, yoga, mindfulness-based practices. Do not carry too much work home. It's very important. Delegate. It's important to delegate. It's important to take help. It's important to collaborate with other teachers if you need to. Talk to anybody. Seek professional help if you need. Interact with students. The more you interact with students, you feel better. It's a good thing, rather than sort of just keeping yourself away. Even delegate some work to students, and students will be more than happy to help you out. Start learning something new. Do not be on social media and negative news. Go and go and do something to make yourself feel better. Get a haircut, buy some clothes. I mean, do whatever you like to do so that you feel nice about yourself. Go to the beauty parlor, get a hair style change, or get a, a facial done, feel nice. Take a day off in between, one day if you want, just to relax. So at 10 a.m., everyone is working. You just lie down on the bed, having a cup of coffee, and feel nice about the fact that, you're able to relax. So that's something which is rare. So do that on a Wednesday morning or a Tuesday morning, and you'll feel, wow, I mean, I'm on a break at least. So even a small break helps. A lot of time for yourself is very important. uh, don't be harsh on yourself. You're doing your best. That's something I tell all teachers. You can't be harsh on yourself, and you can't. And most teachers are very perfectionistic. So that is something that goes, against them. And I tell them that it's okay if you're 95% correct. It's fine. You that 5% error is permissible. You can't set the 100% bar. I mean, I know they set it for their students, so they expect to be themselves that way. But that is something which is there. And I think the most important thing is that to talk and be with the right group of people that will ooze positivity rather than ooze negativity. I'd rather be with a group of teachers that smile and say, wow, I have 100 papers to check tomorrow, rather than I have be with a group of people that will crib and say, I have 100 papers to check tomorrow. So that is something which it's like feeling upset that I have 100 essays to read, and feeling nice that I have 100 new ideas to read about. I mean, it makes a huge difference to your work, when you go with that perspective. And I always tell them that you're a very, very important, because if you're not important, then we need you're the most important part of the education system. So we need to take care of you. Whatever we need to do to take care of you, we'll do. Like, I'll give you a very small one, just 30 seconds more. In a school where I work, what we did is we started a mental health cafe in the school. So we had a coffee machine, we had a machine where soup and some snacks were, it was all on the house for teachers. And we said that you can go there, you can read a book, play Monopoly, play chess, play some board games for half an hour, come back. And that is your space, no one is going to disturb you. So if you feel, so we even had like a mattress. So a teacher went, took a half an hour nap, came back, took his next class. I mean, it made a world of a difference to them. It just made them feel that, oh, we have this space which is there. And we said and there were all sorts of books, Rudyard Kipling, and there were other books. We said you can just go and read any book randomly that you want to read. There were some self-help books. So someone went and read about positive life quotes, came back, and they came back rejuvenated. And the most important thing was that they felt that we have some space in, we want a cup of coffee, it's available. We want to eat something, it's available. And we said, there was even a wall where we said, you can write what you feel. And at the end of 3 months, we'll see what everyone has written. And, it gave students a view that how teachers feel. And I think that made a world of a difference. And I think, uh, and I'll tell you this, students are very sensitive. We had one boy in our school who used to often trouble the teachers. And this one teacher wrote on that board that, I feel stressed and but then being here, I feel relaxed. So the next day, the teacher went to the class, and that boy who was supposed to be the most mischievous boy went up to her and said that, I think I'm also probably one of the small causes, of the stress that you're having. So I promise to behave well in your class from today. So at least that stress will be eliminated. And the teacher was very touched. The teacher was very touched that the student understood uh, that perspective. And that boy never misbehaved in any class after that, because he understood that the teacher gets affected. So, I mean, these are small interventions, but they go a very long way.
I love the
Awesome.
initiatives. Well done.
Yeah.
That's
sweet.
beautiful.
Interesting.
That's really sweet. I'm so grateful to all of you today for being here on this platform. It's just been such an amazing, rich discussions today. I've always believed that our first mentor when we were children in classes have been our teachers. So I will definitely just summarize today. I'll do my best in the next 60 seconds, I guess. So today we talked a lot about burnout. We talked about what burnout is and the way we can recognize burnout. So when there is a lack of passion, when there's a lack of drive, it can lead to, as teachers, feeling very disconnected, not feeling engaged, whether it's with their students or whether it's in their home or in their other environments that they are interacting in. And so it's definitely worth realizing and acknowledging that teachers have many different roles that they play. And to manage a classroom, they do need more support. We talked a lot about the power of inner alignment, about self-regulation, and those roles that are important for a teacher to best support themselves in the classroom. And of course, we talked about setting boundaries. We talked about making changes in the administrative system. I love the comment from Dr. Nawana on having streamlined meetings. I think that's a very important and valid point to say. There's only so many meetings a person can have in a day. So I definitely think that there's really powerful aspects here. It all really comes back down to how we as individuals can become more aware of ourselves. Children are beautiful. They are like sponges. They absorb everything that they see, that they hear, that they feel, that they touch. And so, as an educator, if we are best able to look after ourselves and give ourselves that opportunity to become more connected within ourselves, then we are giving the best version of ourselves outside in the environment. So with that, I just want to say, if you've enjoyed today's webinar, please do follow us on LinkedIn. Abhyas is available on LinkedIn. If you look at the top bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see our QR code. So please do follow us for more exciting, interesting webinars coming up. And of course, here at Abhyas, we have corporate events, we have Abhyas retreats. And so there's amazing opportunities there as well to be able to connect and be in nature, to be having that quality time with ourselves, to connect with ourselves and to learn more about ourselves. And of course, if you would like to listen and watch other webinars, please do follow us on our YouTube channel, Abhyas Mauritius. And I'd like to share our next webinar is this Friday, and the topic is called Youth and the Mental Health Crisis. So another topic that I'm very passionate about, given my background in child protection policy. So let's keep these conversations going. Please do join us on LinkedIn for any future conversations, and I look forward to seeing you again on this platform in the oncoming time. Thank you so much for your time today. Wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful afternoon and look forward to seeing you again next time. Take care. Thank you. Goodbye for now.